I don't know if my phone is gonna run out. Okay, so this is how last minute this is. I don't know if my phone's gonna run out. Okay, there we go. I'm like, my internet is so unstable. My phone is almost dying. My laptop's almost dying. So this is like really, really super last minute and very somewhat unscripted. Like I just wrote a bare bones script just right before I jumped on. This is inspired by Josie Rosario. Shout out to Josie. Um, and a lot of personal work that I've been doing around understanding my culture and my different identities and how it's showing up in my business. So, for some of you who don't know, I'm identify as a queer, pansexual, in a heterosexual marriage relationship of 15 years, mental health therapist of 10 years, entrepreneur who has other businesses as well, real estate for 15 years. And so my entrepreneurial side existed before my therapist side, and it just like brought out my therapist side a little bit more. And recently I've stepped into business coaching. So it's conscious business coaching, which means we do work on your inner work, which lives at the intersection of you being Asian, female, possibly queer if you are, neurodivergent, which I am, entrepreneurial, and Asian. So like all those intersections are they exist for a reason. They exist like we bring many parts of ourselves into our work. And so today I wanted to talk about how these intersections are all very thrilling, some very thrilling, and also very, very toxic. So, what I mean by that is me being Asian bodied, female bodied. Oh, my connection is so terrible. Uh, my Instagram live is cutting in and out, and so I'm kind of like mindful of that. Um, I wanted to share about my identities and how they can be so helpful and also so hurtful to um oh, sorry, my Instagram thing cut out again. Could be so helpful in my business and so hurtful in my business. So, something that I've noticed with being an Asian American and a therapist, and if any of y'all are in this intersection, like, let me know. Hi, good to see you, Bara. Um, what I notice is that I am really good at this role because I've been conditioned for it. So, my being Asian female bodied and being a therapist aligns really well with my intersections because I'm a great caretaker. I'm already very collectivistic. I'm looking out for the collective and really mindful of how to read the room, people's body language and energy, and people's background. Like I'm naturally a sociologist at heart. Like I look at the systems that are informing a person's um like well-being and non-well-being. I'm not looking at them as an individual, as like a one person. I'm looking at them as like in their collective identity. And as a sociologist and a therapist, I'm seeing how all the systems of oppression inform where they are now. That is a gift. That is a gift that I believe most, if not all, bodies of culture who are non-white possess as caregivers. We don't see people as like an individual entity. We see them as like a multiple um, parts of themselves, and we actually have maybe I just want to speak for myself. For me, I see people's ancestors too. Like I see them intergenerationally as a part of like their extended spiritual, like extended family who have also passed. So not only do I see people in terms of like how they are fitting into and affected by systems, I see your ancestral intergenerational profiles too. Caregivers for folks, like it is a gift. Oh, I'm so sorry if I disconnected again. Like we bring this sociological lens to our care. I just want to name that being like a really big deal, a gift. Um, something that I feel like I really need to speak on that is not helping us in our entrepreneurial ways. And this is what I define as like what Josie at least has shared, and I resonate so much with this, is that disruptive entrepreneurship is charging, excuse me, I know I cut out again. Disruptive entrepreneurship is charging appropriately, like charging appropriate to the values of the service that you're given and the energetic like output that you give according to your experiences. That is part of it. And other part of it is like developing a business that supports your lifestyle, that like centers your lifestyle, that centers your needs. And the third is doing things on your terms. That's hard for therapists because we were bred not to do things on our terms. But anyways, I don't want to get into that just right away, but like entrepreneurship, conscious entrepreneurship is one that like centers you as the subject matter expert, that centers you. Disruptive entrepreneurship is something that I would like also say is like authentic, that comes from parts of you, that brings out multiple parts of you, and that is conscious, that is like you're like conscious of the systems that you live in, and centers you. It seeks to decolonize, which means like it centers you. That's why I believe in entrepreneurship so much, is that it's a vehicle to center your expertise, your medicine, your healing powers, which is so hard to do when you're working part of a corporation or a nonprofit. So I just wanted to say like that is a piece that I wanted to like hang over our whole discussion, is what is disruptive entrepreneurship? What is conscious entrepreneurship? It's something that decenters you, and it decenters it centers you, excuse me, and allows you to be the subject matter expert. Why is Asian culture and therapy culture so not fitting for this? Why does it oppress us? And why does it oppress Asian females specifically? And the answer to that is that it is it centers therapy culture and Asian culture center it centers clients. We have this term in therapy world called client centered care. And that the idea is that the client is the center, and I and like their of course their well-being is the center. Like of course we're not doing any harm. Like the idea is like do no harm. But when the client's needs are centered, it's actually disruptive to our ability to show up and like do business, period. It is actually super harmful. It's a recipe for parentification to be repeated. And parentification really just means like us going back to a place of like being a little child, being um, uh, a parent to our parents, with being invisible and being like small. Like the client centered care model of Western therapy actually takes out the therapist and like allows the client to take up all of the space with all of their needs. I do not believe that that's healthy. I believe that therapist and client has room to show up fully, both. I'm not saying as a therapist you need to center yourself and to like make yourself like take up so much space in the therapist space that you are like ignoring and neglecting the client. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying like client centered care, the implication of that is that the therapists don't have needs. The therapist needs are invalid, and the therapist needs come second to the client. And that is actually really harmful to, it's a setup for failure for entrepreneurs, self, private practice practitioners. I'm talking to y'all folks out there, like Asian female therapists who are doing private practice, I guess, and working for agency too, because it's actually worse if you work for agency or group practice. But your care doesn't come first. It comes second, third, fourth to your business. And that's really, really harmful. That's like super harmful to your business. The second is like, what does it mean to be a blank slate? So, like, in therapy world, we're trained in our Western therapy lenses and our institutions to be blank slates. What does that mean? It means like to be neutral, to be just like a person that is like devoid of values, devoid of principles, devoid of self, basically. And you get to like show up as a neutral person, like a Switzerland. And that's so unrealistic. It's unrealistic to show up as a blank slate. It's unrealistic. It's like impossible to show up as a blank slate. And yet, in Asian culture, and in therapy culture, the intersection of that is so real. Like in Asian culture, I grew up believing that I was conditioned to believe that I couldn't take up space, that I needed to be a blank slate. I never could share my opinion. And when I did share my opinion, it was very much invalidated. So that is like something that's really real in this era and this like generation, especially those who have parents who grew up under like communist or really like militant regimes who are like ruthless, that like killed our ancestors for having a perspective. This whole blank slate idea, it's Western, but also very Asian and Eastern. Like if y'all have family members that grew up under the Ramos regime or the North Korean or Chinese communist regime, like you literally got your head cut off for having a perspective. Like having a perspective and not being a blank slate. You needed to be a blank slate. You needed to have like our ancestors needed to have information be downloaded onto us and to be like reconditioned and to be re-educated is the term in order to survive. Like they literally some of our ancestors went to concentration camps to get re-educated. Like that is a real thing for our parents and our grandparents. If your parents or grandparents went to concentration camps to get re-educated, you better believe that stepping into a role of a therapist was really natural for you, at least a Western in Western institutions. To be a blank slate, to be neutral, to not disclose anything. The idea of self disclosure in the Western Therapy Institute lens was that if you self disclose, you're going to take up too much space and you're going to be a narcissist. That is so far from the truth. And I just wanted to say that, like, there's a very real belief in Western institutions and therapy institutions that if you take up space, then like it's actually going to do harm to your clients. And clients more than ever want to hear your perspective. They want to hear like what you believe in. They want to hear your values. They want to hear, our clients want to hear our perspectives. They want to hear our ideas. They want to hear like our ideas, sharing our values and ideas actually can create safety. It gives them more information to make an informed decision about whether or not they would want to work with us and continue to work with us. And so when you don't share your perspective, just like, I'm just thinking about like me as an Asian client going to seek therapy services. If my options are like between, three white people, you best believe I'm going to check them out and see what their values are with social justice and racism. I want to check them out. Like if I'm an Asian client and I'm trying to look for a therapist and my only choices were a white therapist, I would check out their social media accounts. I would check out their directories. I would check out their blogs. Like if they have all this is information for me to know, like, have you done your anti-racism work? If you're a male identified therapist, have you done some work around internalized misogyny and sexism? Like that stuff is not, the more you reveal, the more safety it could cultivate with people. So that's why the blank slate thing with being Asian and being a therapist is so, it fosters so much invisibility. The next one is being nice and non-confrontational. That is both an Asian value and a therapist value. And therapists believe that there's this culture in therapy that's like, you're just supposed to be nice. You're just never supposed to rock the boat. You're not supposed to make your clients feel uncomfortable. You're not supposed to you're supposed to be like empathetic if they're like late chronically, or if they're like chronically, if they have like certain patterns that you see, like lateness or like not paying their payments or invoices, to be ultra empathetic and flexible. And this culture of like non-confrontationalness, it encourages people, culture of non-confrontationalness encourages people pleasing, and it encourages resentment in the therapist, as well as in like the Asian culture too. It encourages people pleasing, which is like codependent, sometimes codependent, not always, but sometimes codependent behavior. And it encourages resentment in the therapist, and it encourages the therapist unconsciously keeping people in helpless positions so that they're like not having things that you need to talk about be talked about. Like if my client is chronically late and I don't talk about that, like really curious about why they're chronically late, like what's going on there with like different parts of them that might not want to show up, that's to their disadvantage in their healing journey. Whenever you have things that are left unsaid and hard, difficult conversations left unsaid, that is perpetuating childhood wounds, because part of childhood wounds is about invisibility, of not feeling safe enough to share things, not feeling safe enough to say things. The next part that I want to talk about is the belief in therapy culture and Asian culture that earning money is bad. And as entrepreneurs, if you don't earn money, you literally cannot do your job. So, like, it is, I could understand with Asian folks and with their therapists, there's this belief that we like need to prosper, like in Asian culture, need to prosper, but also need to like be all about saving people, helping people, and not about that. And that implicitly means that we don't need to care so much about money. And I just want to really challenge that. I really want to challenge this like blatant money wound that the therapy culture is perpetuating. And I really want to challenge the like their money wounds that Asian culture is perpetuating with like, don't be comfortable with receiving money, don't ask for too much, and just be happy with what you have. And that means that when we leave out conversations, when we leave this like part of ourselves that like is really entrepreneurial and is about like earning a lifestyle and sustainability in our income that could support like business on our terms, that actually, that idea of like, you can't earn money, you don't be comfortable with asking for too much, don't give yourself a raise, all of that actually ties into like how resentment is built with your clients, how resentment is built towards yourself, because you're like, you can't, it's, if you want to be a disruptive entrepreneur who has business on their terms, centers their needs, the requirement is that you need to face your money wounds. You need to work through those money wounds, because if you don't have profit, you can't actually make a living. I'm going to repeat it again because my Instagram like live feed is going in and out. If you don't have profit, you can't have a business. If you don't have a business, you can't serve people. If you don't have a business that earns money, you can't actually put food on the table sustainably. You actually have to like leave your job. And I know a lot of therapists who are going to corporate jobs and working 50, 40 hours a week to fill to like have their income be um like shifted up a little bit. And little do we know that these like companies like BetterHelp or in even taking insurances, we are actually in a for-profit business that when we submit ourselves to insurance, when we submit ourselves to like companies like BetterHelp, they take such a huge cut from us. And we don't even bat an eye about that. And so, really, you're giving your money away and you're saying you're perpetuating this idea of like, again, like deprioritizing your needs, deprioritizing your financial needs. So, when you don't center your financial needs, you actually end up shooting yourself in the foot with your business. The next one is there's a culture in therapy culture and Asian culture that tells us to deprioritize our mental health needs, ironically. It's like so ironic because you think about therapists in the therapy wellness circles and you talk to us and we're burnt out. We're like, we have marriages that are falling apart. We have relationships like that are broken we're isolated. We don't know how to ask for help because we're so good at giving help. um, so this is like something that like I really want to speak about because we as therapists cannot even walk the walk with our self-care and our community care. We're like isolated and we don't take care of ourselves. And I can speak from first hand point of view. Like this is an area that I know I'm actively struggling in. Is there a space where our needs can be held in tandem with our clients' needs? And I think yes, but it takes incredible amount of like inner work to cultivate that and deep, deep self accountability. Deep self accountability in that nobody else is looking at you, and all of this stuff is done behind closed doors. So it is really up to you to prioritize yourself first. Like nobody, if you're on your own in private practice, nobody's gonna be like, oh, what is she doing? What are they doing to like to walk the walk of like prioritizing their needs, holding boundaries, putting their own mental health and well-being first before their clients. Like we don't it's such a isolated business that you're going to be the one that hold yourself accountable. So I created a group coaching container for Asian female entrepreneurs, and therapists are included in that. So like I work with therapists, coaches, health practitioners, business coaches, Asian female entrepreneurs, practitioners who want to heal from this type of like culture of invisibility, hustle culture, guilt driven culture, fear of disappointment culture, fear of rocking the boat culture, fear of putting ourselves first culture, and having people realize and work through an embodied sense of like, okay, I can put myself first. I can ask for what I need. I can charge rates that are appropriate, like to my lifestyle. And I'm going to practice that in a consent based business model that's not manipulative, that's not sharky, that is invitational. And that's like kind of a feminist perspective versus a masculine perspective. Like a masculine perspective is more like a penetrative perspective where you just go out, 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 and you like um, share, and like and expect people to download. But a feminist perspective is an invitational perspective to business. It's a consent based perspective where you share your perspective and you invite people into that. And that is way more of a gentler perspective than this masculine perspective. So like this is the perspective and the model that I'm cultivating and inviting you to. And this is what it looks like. First, it's our first module in our group coaching program is to cultivate safety in the body. Nothing can happen if there's not safety. There is like nothing productive can happen when we are not in a safe place in our bodies, when we don't know how to come home to our bodies. And that's like a practice that we will start cultivating and a skill to be learned. So we'll incorporate the internal family systems into that, somatic toys and tools. Um, if I'm cutting out, I'm so sorry. We'll incorporate internal family systems and somatic lens to bring your body to and your nervous system to a place that's regulated, to know how to do that. The second module is about like attachment wounding, childhood wounds, and historical and generational trauma and systemic oppression. I know that's big, um, but we talk about how these systems of oppression and intergenerational oppression and personal burdens in that family interactions and individual interactions affect your like different parts of us, like specifically your inner children. So we work with parts in our model, believing that parts hold their own personality and behaviors. And there are parts of us that are greatly burdened by legacies that are not ours. Some of them are personal, but most of these legacies are legacies that are inherited and passed down from generation to generation, or that are like institutional systemic messages that we get. So the idea of attachment wounding is that if your parent has failed you, if society has failed you, we don't, as kids, say, "Oh, there's systemic oppression, so society must be, um, you know, the one that's a source of like my trauma, or my parents are neglectful." We don't like say that. We don't externalize the um, the trauma, we internalize it. Attachment wounding comes from us observing like trauma and observing oppression and giving ourselves messages about ourselves that are really harmful towards ourselves. So, for example, of like systemic oppression is happening, like you see your people decimated, like through watching your like grandparents go through internment camps or something. What happens is you actually notice, like you actually tell yourself, like, oh, it must be because I am not as important or not lovable. It's not because people have, uh, you know, a system of hate that runs through their blood. Like we don't externalize these things. We we produce messages about ourselves. And as a result, those messages are what is so burdensome in our system and cause us to hustle, cause us to act out of guilt, cause us to deprioritize our self care, cause us to really like self destruct in our presentations because we're like trying to be perfectionists. Um, all of that comes into play with your work as an entrepreneur. And then the next module is mentoring your inner CEO, like your and creating um what I would call what or the founders of internal family system, Dick Schwartz, he calls like self energy, cultivating this like curious, compassionate, creative, um, calm, confident, and like very um, grounded part of you that's like really powerful, and allowing that energy to create self leadership in your system so that the younger parts of you that are burdened are not running your business, because those parts actually collude with therapist culture, Asian culture that we talked about in the beginning. They want you to deprioritize your needs, want you to like not charge money, appropriate money. And the last part is taking up appropriate space. So the last module, we go through what it means in our businesses to market authentically, to raise our rates. And we won't actually do those things necessarily, but we niche down what it means to like actually like do things that are required of us to live life in our companies that are disruptive and like cause us to have disruptive business practices, which disruptive in a good way. So the last module is taking up appropriate space, and how do you become a disruptive entrepreneur by this self-leadership model that I will go through in our time together. The outcomes for what people report that they walk away with is having a powerful trauma informed roadmap to aligning your professional self with your personal self. And number two, it's like learning how to market your business from a deep place of resonance, learning how to market your business from a deep place of resonance and consent versus manipulation. The third one is, hi, Margarita, of having an embodied understanding of how being a practitioner and running a business comes with a set of responsibilities that are both client and therapist led. So that are both like held, your needs are held in tandem. Your needs as an entrepreneur and your client's needs can be held together, and your client's needs doesn't have to like run the show. And then the fourth is knowing how to come back to safety in your body. The fourth is knowing how to come back to safety in your body, even after being triggered by a client, after being triggered in your business, like whatever your triggers are, your money wound triggers, or clients leaving, clients coming late, clients being inconsistent, learning how to like come back safely in your body so you can navigate all of the things that come up in your business. I believe that the business reveals all the unhealed parts of us that haven't been resolved, have like childhood histories and woundings that need extra care and attention to. And the next one is you'll learn how to invite your body into your business decisions so that your inner wisdom can be more involved in your decision making. That is a huge one. Like to involve your body in your decisions in your business is huge. So many of us cut off our bodies in our decision making. That's why this like group coaching program is called the Embodied Entrepreneur, because we want to include our body and our body's wisdom. To develop the next one, that outcome that people walk away with, is we develop a more clear understanding of how to attract your aligned client. And part of that work means going inward and consulting with your like self energy that's connected to your ancestors, your community, and your source, your divine power, about like who you want to work with. And that is like a lot of folks with complex trauma, just, and me specifically, I'm just going to speak for myself. For me, wrestling with complex trauma, I find it really hard to kind of like name my aligned client. At least I did for a long time. And so now I want to invite you to this journey of like what it would be like to work with how to become more aligned with yourself so you could attract your aligned client, which is, by the way, a past version of yourself. And then the last part is, how do we feel more comfortable receiving money from our clients? Receiving money from our clients is something that's really uncomfortable for a lot of BIPOC folks, Asian folks especially, and therapists too, like being in the field where we're not really encouraged to work with money and work with like dealing with money wounds is a huge thing. So I will address that in my group coaching program. My internet keeps cutting out, so I'm like not really sure what you heard and what you didn't hear. But on my Facebook page, I have the live streamed in replay without it hasn't cut out that much. So if you want to go check out the replay there, you're welcome to. It's the Unburnout Strategy is my Facebook profile, my business profile. You go there, and then I'll like post this replay up in my Instagram feed also. Do you have any? I don't know who's still on, but do you have any questions about how to be a disruptive entrepreneur? I'm curious about like what your thoughts are. I don't know what parts you might have caught, but I'm curious if there's any questions. I'll stay on for a few minutes extra. Oh, my internet's like cutting in and out. I don't know if you're still on, Margarita, but I would love to chat with you if you have any questions or anybody else who's on. If not, you're welcome to DM me with your questions, and I'd love to chat with you and would love to hear more about your thoughts. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining